They say karma never forgets, and when you steal someone else's success, it's only a matter of time before the truth comes out. This is the story of a woman who saved a dying business from the edge of collapse, only to have the man she trusted take all the credit for her hard work. For a while, he basked in the spotlight, enjoying the praise and the profits, but what he didn't see coming was how karma had quietly started working in her favor. Sophia starts it all, a brilliant and dedicated planner who had long thought that loyalty and commitment would bring her wealth. She merely wanted to perform her job well and effect some changes. Fame meant nothing to her. She was in employment for Mr. Carter, an ambitious businessman whose business was about to end. Carter had few choices, staff was departing, and bills were mounting. Still, Carter's arrogance kept him oblivious of the tempest surrounding him. He would not acknowledge that his former successful firm had fallen apart thanks to his own actions. Every day Sophia observed the anarchy spreading. Analyzing reports, learning about rivals, and devising ideas that might help turn things, she worked long hours. Though no one ever noticed her, she had the ideas, the vision, and the solutions. Certainly not Carter's. Sophia was simply another worker, a name on the payroll, to him. Unknowingly, he neglected the person who would later spare everything he had constructed. Still, this was not just a straightforward tale of teamwork and thankfulness. This wasn't one of deception, but of treason. Sophia resolutely agreed to let Carter give her radical plan a try. He had little alternative, the company was close to insolvency. He had no money, no time, and no better options. Even here, he was still underestimating his partner. Unknown to Carter, Sophia's plan would not only rescue the business but also trigger a series of events that would permanently alter their lives. The company began flourishing after a few contracts followed a small victory. Sophia's ideas were performing beyond anyone's dreams. As the earnings mounted and the media started to pay attention to the transformation of the business, Carter noticed a chance. He took all of the credit himself rather than splitting it with Sophia. He stood before cameras, conducted interviews, and allowed the world to think that his genius had rescued the company. Sophia was never referred to by name. The blame of Carter's fabricated story concealed her works behind. For some time, he appeared to have carried first. He was honored, glorifying, and compensated. Carter didn't appreciate, however, that karma had already started its job. Sophia was not like any other employee. She was the sort of person every difficult company hopes for on their staff. Resourceful, wise, and unflagging, she had a talent for seeing possibilities where others saw none. Still, her intelligence was modest, understated. She was not one to seek acknowledgement or compliments. Trusting that her work would in time be appreciated, she rather let it speak. Regrettably, not always do the humble prevail, nor did Mr. Carter. Carter, on the other hand, was the complete opposite. He was loud, ambitious, and desperate to stay relevant. He had built his company from the ground up years ago, but success had made him complacent. He stopped listening to advice, stopped innovating, and assumed that the business would continue to thrive simply because it always had. When the competition caught up and the market shifted, Carter was caught off guard. The company's once loyal clients started leaving, projects began drying up, and revenues plummeted. Even as it was clear he was not a good leader, Carter would not accept blame for the drop. He never blamed himself, but rather the market, the economy, also his staff, for everything. Too proud to confess his choices had driven the business toward collapse, he was. To the public, Carter remained the confident, skilled businessman. Behind the scenes, it was obvious he was fighting to run the business. Sophia observed all of this developing far before anyone else did. Late in the office, she pored over figures and studied every aspect of the business operations. She realized what needed doing. She had great ideas that could reverse events. But whenever she tried to speak up, Carter rejects her. He would answer, "We don't do things this way around here." Or even less, he would not listen at all. It was demoralizing as well as annoying. Sophia wasn't the one to fight for the spotlight, but she couldn't ignore the sinking sensation that regardless of how much she tried, her work would be unappreciated. Still, she said she would not concede. Head down, perfecting her plan and waiting for the time she could show herself. Sophia, deep down, believed in something Carter had forgotten, that true success is not about ego or image but results. That moment came rather earlier than she had planned. The company had hit their limit. Carter had few choices when a large customer withdrew from a long-term agreement. Pacing the room, he convened an emergency gathering and shouted about the difficulties facing the company. He first turned down anyone who spoke, then he sought ideas. The room was stifled. People were afraid of the business failing, of being let go. Sophia was seated silently listening to Carter describe how difficult things were. She felt her chest expanding with impatience. She second-guessed whether it was worth the risk. She knew she had the solution, but would he pay attention? Would he let her speak really? Then she realized, however, if she did not try now, she might not get another chance. Whether Carter recognized it or not, the business was set to collapse, and her ideas could be the only salvation it needs. She at long last opened her lips. Strong and cool, her voice sliced through the muddle of the room. The room became calm. She said, "I have a schedule." Peterson among others, everybody turned to look at her. She appeared to be carrying the entire weight of the company for a moment. Sophia did not trip, still. Her plan was clearly stated and she offered a complete assessment of their future. If Carter could not rationally contradict her plan, she had completed even. Still, he was doubtful. He did not have experience in allowing another person to guide. He reluctantly accepted there is no other way Sophia might start to implement her ideas. He barely thanked her or acknowledged her, rather, he ridiculed her. He felt it was only one more desperate attempt to save his company. But to Sophia, this was finally a chance to show her skills. Neither of them perceived this would utterly change everything. Sophia had freedom to act her own way for the first time. The future of the company would clearly never be the same when she began to carry out her plan. Carter's former business was a shadow. The once lively office now seemed unnaturally hushed. Rows of unoccupied desks provided a clear realization of all the personnel who had already gone. With customers disappearing overnight and bills accumulating faster than they could be paid, it was the sort of difficulty that might shatter even the most sanguine of leaders, but Carter was not one of those. He retreated deeper into denial, seizing onto the hope that somehow everything would right itself, rather than own up. Sophia, though, saw the truth as it was. She understood they were short of time and the numbers did not lie. Not only to stay but to restore the confidence of its customers and staff, the company required a strong move. But every time she tried to mention it, Carter brushed her off. Even though it was clear to everyone else that he hadn't, he would still say, "I've handled more." His rejection of guidance wasn't only aggravating, it was also life-threatening. But then, the breaking point came. A major client, one that accounted for nearly half of their revenue, pulled out of a long-term contract. Carter was blindsided. He spent days blaming the client, accusing them of being unreasonable, when in reality, they had left because of his mismanagement. Employees started whispering in the hallways, wondering how much longer the company would last. Sophia could see the fear in their eyes, the same fear she felt deep down. Sophie realized she could not wait any longer in this turmoil. She'd spent several months perfecting a method she recognized would transform everything. It was founded on thorough investigation, research, and a good knowledge of what their customers wanted. It was not simply a risk. Of course, convincing Carter would be difficult. Carter was frantic at another confrontational meeting. He walked back and forth discussing reducing overhead and letting more staff go. He had irritability but no resolutions in his speech. Sophia lastly stood up. Respectfully, she started, her voice even but strong, "Firing more personnel will not rescue this company. Act we must, and act we should right away." The space was hushed. Everyone, all Carter, turned to see her. She knew she could feel their gazes, but she did not withdraw. She detailed her plan over the next several minutes, a fresh marketing approach that would not only draw new clients but also retain those who had been lost. It was bold, distinct from prior companies' approach, and daring. Still, this was their top chance. Carter listened, his face inscrutable. At last, he nodded after what seemed like ages. He said, "Fine," with a little irritation. "Whatever you have to do. Just make it happen." Sophia did not delay at all. Throwing herself into the job, she put her plan into effect and inspired the few remaining team members. Though late nights became the standard, the outcomes began to appear little by little. First client came back, then one more still. Finally, still another. In weeks the fortunes of the business started to shift. Hope first came back in months. The media also started to become aware. Carter was fast to claim credit for it all when rumors of the incredible recovery of the company started to spread. He granted interviews discussing the visionary leadership that rescued his firm. He never brought up Sophia or the group that had been relentless in getting it done. Initially, Sophia reminded herself it didn't count. Recognition was not what motivated her, she was just delighted to see the company succeed. But it became more difficult to turn a blind eye as Carter's fibs started to grow more audacious. Sophia remained invisible while he was all around enjoying the compliments he did not merit. At a company-wide gathering intended to commemorate their success, the last humiliation fell. Standing on stage, Carter spoke to the staff. He discussed the challenges they had encountered and how his determination and leadership had pushed them forward. The viewers clapped, but Sophia sensed her heart constraint. Given everything to rescue this company, Carter had taken everything. Carter looked her way as the clapping ended. Their gazes locked for a split second. He didn't care, it was almost like he knew precisely what he had done. Sophia changed something in that moment. Staying quiet, she saw, would only let him keep exploiting her. Though he probably tried to claim her work, the facts still favored her. Sophia didn't say anything that day, but she quietly began preparing for what would come next. Carter may have thought he had won, but what he didn't know was that the story wasn't over. Karma was already at work, and Sophia was about to ensure that it found him. Carter was riding high on the wave of success, completely unaware of the storm brewing beneath the surface. With the company's newfound stability, he seemed unstoppable. Interviews, awards, and high-profile meetings became his new routine. He enjoyed the attention, the admiration, and the respect. To the world, he was a brilliant entrepreneur who had defied the odds. But what no one saw was the growing resentment behind closed doors. Sophia, meanwhile, remained in the background. She watched as Carter took full advantage of her hard work, using it as a stepping stone to elevate his own reputation. At first, she tried to push the bitterness aside. After all, she hadn't done this for recognition, she had done it because she believed in the company and the people who depended on it. But the more Carter basked in the glory, the harder it became to stay quiet. The workers recognized it also. Everyone knew who had truly turned things over, even if Carter swaggered around the office behaving like a savior. Though her work was brushed aside, Sophia's ideas kept the employment intact. Rumors started to travel through the company. As Sophia did not receive the recognition she merited, people started to doubt Carter's direction. Sophia, though, would not be sidetracked by the gossip. Her plan was in place. She started cataloging everything, meeting notes, emails, and every bit of evidence supporting her part in the turnaround of the business, quietly and meticulously. Her actions were not petty, they were deliberate. For the moment, Carter might have taken the blame, but Sophia recognized something he didn't: the facts always comes to light. Sophia was behind the scenes developing contacts with important staff and clients, while Carter was occupied visiting high-profile events. She made no boasts or challenges of any kind. She rather let her deed speak itself. Gradually, she won the respect and trust of her surroundings. Still, karma does not need an invitation, it operates on its own timeline. Carter's ego was expanding at a rate greater than business revenues. He began to act prudentially, neglecting counsel from those who had kept the company running and hankering too much for too dangerous agreements. He thought that his run of successes would last indefinitely, but the fissures were already showing. Sophia also observed and waited. She just believed in fairness rather than revenge. She knew the foundation on which Carter had been building was not as firm as he had believed. And she would be ready when it all fell down, hopefully never. From one slip, Carter's collapse started. He inked a huge contract with a new customer, one that offered great returns but carried even bigger risks, in his pursuit for more popularity. Sophia had cautioned him on this, noting the contract's drawbacks and possibility of catastrophe. However, Carter brushed her worries away since he was blindsided by his own ego. "Knowing what I'm doing," he said, annoyed to her once more. Initially, everything appeared okay. Carter was more sure than ever, and the agreement generated a torrent of money. The more the months went on, the more his decision started to show itself. Changes were sought by the client, delays mounted, and expenses started to spiral beyond control. A golden opportunity turned into a fast financial catastrophe. The tension was rising, and for the first time Carter could not openly expose it. Investors started to question, employees became anxious, and customers started withdrawing. The meticulously composed image of Carter was starting to crumble. He accused everyone around him, including Sophia, rather than own his mistakes. Carter had no idea Sophia had already prepared herself. Every proposal, every plan, every contribution to the company had been noted. As the chaos unfolded, she now saw her opening to set the record straight. Sophia came forward when the investors asked about the abrupt problems of the company. Confidently and serenely she presented the proof. Emails, reports, and papers demonstrating not only her contribution to the company's success but also Carter's poor decisions that had brought the present financial situation. She did it because the facts had to be spoken, not to degrade him. The response was quick. Irate investors, supportive Sophia employees, and customers who had been undecided started contacting her personally. On the flip side, Carter had only his damaged self-esteem left. Once his fans started to comprehend that his success had been fictitious and obtained credit, they turned their backs. Offering him credit once more fell. Sophia, too, was not into seeking vengeance or bragging. With honesty, vision, and a dedication to the supporters who had backed her, she just took the reins and started directing the business as it should have been everywhere around. Carter slipped into obscurity, a warning about what happens when you take credit for someone else's effort. And Sophia was thriving. After all, reality always triumphs and karma always prevails. Given Carter's absence, the firm embarked on a new age, one run by the individual who had gained the respect and confidence of all of those about her. Sophia inspired the whole team by means of a humble certainty rather than egotism or anger. Beyond their leader, she was their hope, their evidence that in the end hard work and honesty always reward. The investors, once skeptical, now saw Sophia as the visionary the company truly needed. Employees who had grown tired of Carter's ego now found themselves motivated and excited to work again. Clients who had left began to return, not just because of the company's turnaround, but because of Sophia herself. Her reputation as a strategic thinker and ethical leader spread quickly, and soon the company was thriving more than ever before. Carter's fall from grace, however, was swift and absolute. His name, once associated with success, became a cautionary tale. The same media that had praised him now exposed the truth about his betrayal. He disappeared from the spotlight, his legacy tarnished, and his ego shattered. Conversely, Sophia never showed off. Carter never came up in sit-downs or interviews for her. She left the findings to speak on their own. She was intent on creating a business that stood for something more: cooperation, respect, and integrity, other than profitability only. And it worked, too. But Sophia's narrative is not only about her victory. It's a reminder to all of us that the ones who actually make a difference are those who silently do the work, who remain honest to their values even in difficult situations. This is about the power of truth, the certainty of karma, and the need of supporting your beliefs. And so Sophia's path turned into a narrative of fairness, perseverance, and redemption. Not only from financial ruin but also from the poisonous environment that had stifled it, she rescued the company. Once dismissed, her name became symbolic of leadership and honesty. Carter got what he had coming. Karma invariably finds those who claim credit for what isn't their own. And if this story shows anything, it is that one cannot run away the truth indefinitely. What about you? Have you ever seen someone take credit for your hard work? Or have you witnessed karma working its magic? Share your story in the comments, I'd love to hear it. And remember to like, share, and follow Lord Ethan's stories for more stories like this. Because here we present not just stories. Among us are teaching, knowledge, and the sort of justice that keeps you engrossed throughout the last moment. Just as we will never forget to get you the next fantastic story, remember that karma never misses a location.